Welcome to Canada's podcast.
Hello, I'm Mario Toneguzzi, Managing Editor of Canada's Podcast. Joining me today for Calgary's podcast is Robert Price, CEO of Bode. Thanks for joining us today, Robert.
Great to be here, Mario, and great to see you.
Great to see you too. And let's maybe start this off by you explaining to people what Bode is and what you do.
Yeah, Bode is a real estate transaction platform. So the ability to buy and sell residential properties without an agent, with all the data, tools, functionality you need to go from the start all the way to the finish, fully online, and saving typically in the $15,000 range per transaction. So we're about ease, convenience, simplicity, modernization, and significant equity savings for customers.
When did the Bode start?
So we launched in the Alberta market about 3 years ago. And so interesting timing. We of course anticipated the global pandemic happening, and we started right at the beginning of the pandemic. So it was really interesting uncertainty to deal with from a company perspective. But so March 2020, we were Alberta wide with our platform. Have since expanded to British Columbia and just launched in Ontario, starting with the GTA last week. So that's been our short experience, but it's been a lot of fun. And we're now into, I think at the end of this month, will be over 700 transactions in Canada and growing fast. So it's been a lot of fun.
Tell me a little bit of the motivation, Robert, behind this, and the genesis of this concept and idea. How did this come about?
Yeah, for me, it was actually a personal experience. So it was going back to 2017. I was selling my previous property, wanting to buy my next one. And I'm going through the process of course, researching properties, looking at pricing, deciding where I want to live, all of these things going on at the same time where I'm selling and buying, and expected to have a really great online, high transparency, high convenience experience, and found that just didn't exist as it does in the rest of my life, whether it's booking travel or logistics or ordering groceries or my banking. Buying and selling cars. I live my life like many Canadians do, fully online. So I wanted that same experience, but of course it didn't exist. And I was working in a previous company, and so I was fully immersed professionally in a different business. But what basically ended up happening is I ended up picking up and calling my buddy, who is a prominent agent in Calgary, and saying, "Can you help me with this? How do let's go forward with the traditional process." What I found throughout the process was that I was doing a lot of the work, all the intellectual work, like pricing, strategy, negotiations. I've actually found the property myself, the one that I wanted to buy online. And my agent throughout was kind of just in the way. He was an administrative person in my experience, even though a good friend of mine, he was working hard. The nature of how that works is so fragmented. It's so analog. It's hard to identify what steps are coming next, and very opaque. So I was in this headspace of, I'm doing all of this work and they're pushing paper and I'm writing a $50,000 check at the end. So I really saw two big problems. The experience was really broken and analog and slow and lacking transparency. And then the actual amount of money for that experience was crazy. And so that gap is what I saw in my personal experience. I don't know if you've bought and sold properties recently, but that's where it came from for me. And then a year later, we sold our previous company, and I wanted to jump into this. And actually, my agent that worked with me sold his brokerage and joined me as a co-founder. So that was really exciting to kind of connect that whole circle.
Do you have plans for future growth in different markets across the country?
Yeah, so we're Alberta wide right now and BC wide. In the GTA, planning to expand through through more growth throughout Ontario, through where the market pulls us. That's really why we picked Toronto next. We had a lot of people saying, "We love your model, love your data, want the ability to leverage your platform." So come bring that value, especially in the Ontario market where there's, it's 5% commission, some of the highest in Canada, and super high property values as well, between 1 and 1.2 million on average. So commission savings there are even higher. They'd be more like $30,000 to $40,000, which is significant when you consider that as a proportion of your equity can typically make up 20 to 30% of your equity. So that's where we are now. Excited to be in that market. I've seen some early traction as well in terms of interested listings, and then we'll expand throughout the rest of Canada where Canadians want us, but also have the US expansion in our headspace and in our roadmap, I should say.
Yeah.
Where in the US, there's a lot of similar challenges. As you may know, the commissions are even higher, 5 to 6% there. Two agents involved in both sides of the transactions. So that's a very similar dynamic to Canada. The regulations are similarly at the state level and provincial level, like Canada. So a lot of similarities in the market there. And we've had a number of American investors and contacts and partners that want us to expand south of the border as well. So in the next 12 months, we'll be seriously looking at that opportunity.
So what were you doing before this?
Well, I was an executive at a company called Axia. So it was a fiber optic business, basically reimagining what a connection to the cloud should be before the cloud existed. So this going back to 2000 is when this company really kicked off. And we kind of took the view of, if you can be, as a consumer, you want the choice of all of the different applications that you can leverage using a network. You don't want a vertical package. You don't want to pay $200 a month if you're a consumer at home for TV, phone, and internet. You actually just want a high-performing connection that allows you to purchase all of the other ways that you can consume content, entertainment, productivity tools, and a long list. And of course, this is now obvious today, but back in the early 2000s, before the cloud really was understood, we were quite a ways ahead of seeing that was going to happen. And so our business is all about building fiber to every premise, government, businesses, residential, across North America, Europe, and Asia. So we had an international and growing business, which is a lot of fun, working with different governments, different cultures, and fundamentally solving the same challenge, which is the existing telcos are not going to upgrade their network unless they're forced to, because they make too much money doing it the old way through copper, which is designed for a phone call. And we came in with this fiber solution that had no compromises and ultimately is becoming more the norm today, to connect everybody on the global grid. So that gave me a lot of experience in a traditional industry, in seeing the ability to really empower consumers, give them that choice, and unlock their capability to control their experience. A lot of those attributes were inspiration for Bode as well.
Now, I might be way out to lunch, and my memory as I get older fails me, but wasn't your family involved in groceries, in the grocery industry?
Yes. So that's my dad, his brothers, and my grandparents started Sunterra. Yeah. So that's I deserve no credit. I've heard a lot about it. I've learned from them a lot, never been directly involved in the business, but a big part of the inspiration that I get in terms of learning different industries and seeing a family that built something from absolutely nothing into a really successful international business that has wholesale side. And then, of course, if you're in Calgary or Edmonton and now Red Deer, you've probably experienced the retail side as well. So very cool to have such an entrepreneurial family. And whether it's in my blood or through training and being inspired by these guys, a big part of what made me excited to be an entrepreneur.
What do you think you've learned from your family and your father in running a business and how to run a successful business?
That's a long list. I would say, to me, a big part of it is the focus on the customer. It's very easy to get locked into or biased towards making money or satisfying your shareholders or only
Mhm.
focused on your employees. I have this view, and I learned this over the years from family and in schooling to some degree, but it's actually about creating amazing customer value and experience. If your customers are really happy, they'll continue to be great customers of yours. Of course, they'll tell other customers, but they'll also make your employees and your team really happy
Yeah.
because they're creating positivity in somebody's life, no matter what that is. And then, of course, in the home building or the residential real estate space, these are real transactions. These are big life impacting deals where 70% of Canadians that own property have the majority of their net worth tied up in their home. So it's really that focus on customer value. And then that creates an amazing employee experience as well. And those two feed off each other. And then upon that success, the financial growth will come and the shareholders will be happy. So I
Yeah.
think that's one key thing. Another key thing is sheer work ethic. Just
Mm.
never giving up. I saw in my own house, I saw up at 6 a.m. every night, at home, whatever, around dinner time, 12, 13, 14-hour days, weekends. I saw, going on 6-week international trips, working with governments, working with other businesses around the world, and just an unbelievable, relentless drive for
Mm.
success. So I have this benchmark that
Yeah.
maybe is an advantage to me in the sense of I've seen that level of I've got a tangible feel for what that actually is. And I knew that coming into this company that I started,
Mm.
uh, knowing it was going to take that, but also relishing the challenge. And
Yeah.
3 years in, it certainly has taken that. And you find as you push yourself to your limits, what your limits are, which is really, to me, a big part of growing as a person is continuously putting yourself outside of your comfort zone and pushing through these barriers and seeing what you're truly made of. So that's been a lot of fun, especially considering capital markets are all over the place,
Yeah.
real estate markets are all over the place, global pandemics, uncertainty, all of that happening over this 3-year period.
Yeah.
Um,
Heck of a
interesting.
time. Heck of a time to come in and start a business.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So no, I'm highly appreciative of it, and I kind of think of it as it's a really good opportunity for me to take that learning and apply it in a really positive way that can impact the world in a truly future forward way that helps people, and that's where my biggest passion comes from.
Yeah. Excellent. Now, doing, obviously, you have presence in BC and Ontario as well, but you're based here in Calgary. I'm just curious from your perspective, how do you view the current business conditions in the city? From the standpoint of running and owning and operating a business, how would you describe what Calgary's like these days?
It's really exciting. I'm sure you're experiencing that in your job as well. Seeing, I was actually just down in Austin representing Alberta's fellowship with Alberta Innovates at the South by Southwest conference. So there's 50 companies selected, and I was expecting, being in the tech community that's growing and new in Calgary, that I would know most of these companies. I only knew 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
So I was able to spend 5 days learning from all these other entrepreneurs, getting to know their businesses and seeing what the drive that we have in Alberta, I think is a weapon of ours. I think it's a big advantage that we have. We're bold, we're straightforward, we're high integrity, but we're also helpful to each other. So there's this really positive community that's being built. And I think it's a critical aspect of new company success and diversification is literally the ability for people to say, I'm going to help you however I can and genuinely mean it, even though they're super busy and we're all very busy with everything that's going on in our professional and personal lives. That DNA that we have, I think, is a huge. When you couple that with our drive and our boldness, I think is a really powerful recipe for success for new companies. So it's an awesome city to live in and work, given and be part of leading the evolution of our diversified strategy.
Okay, then. Now, obviously, running a business, it's always on your mind. It's almost a 24/7 thing. What do you do to, I guess, to relax or de-stress, or what's some of your interests and passions outside of running this business?
Yeah, it's a great question because I find that it's really easy to become obsessed with it because you're so passionate about it and it's consuming and there's always the next challenge and you have a great team and you have all these things that make it really exciting. But I've never thought of business as life. I've always thought of it as one part of my life, an important part and a passion, but it's never more important than family. It's never more important than personal relationships and my own health. So I really believe in a balance. And for me, I'm active. I've played sports. I'm probably more addicted to sports than to business. I played tennis at a high level. I played hockey competitively when I was younger. I love to ski. Being outside, to answer your question directly, I find is really liberating. I find you kind of feel the pressure in your body come out of you when you're breathing this beautiful Canadian air that we are lucky to have. And then, spending a lot of time with my fiance. I love traveling. We love food. We're very social, so we love hosting people for dinners. But I really value that balance and find that waking up early, 6 a.m., getting a workout in essentially every morning before work is a big energizer for me, and both mentally and physically. So I'm very much in that headspace in my own life. And then from a team perspective, I'm always a fan of having people take as much vacation as they actually have, not just grind to grind forever, because that's where burnout happens. So I want people to take their vacation and to take that time away, because when they're working, that's where the performance and intensity will show up.
Do you think that's what, one of the biggest mistakes that entrepreneurs and business owners make is that they don't take that time for themselves, and they do burn out, but they also, are not as productive as you invest in some time in yourself. The investment comes in productivity wise, right?
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I don't think there's one answer. For me, this balance really works for me. I know other entrepreneurs that will literally go 2 years straight and work every day and work 100-hour weeks.
Yeah.
And they've built successful companies. So I think it kind of comes back to, what is the goal of the business? If the goal of the business is create some value in 2 to 3 years and flip it and sell it and make some money. A lot of entrepreneurs think that way, and that's totally all good. Not my headspace. My headspace is creating long-term sustainable value. So I'm acutely aware of, there's times you need to really ramp up, and you might work 3 months straight because it's required, but make sure that you build in these down times as well, so you have some pacing there, knowing that you're in it for long-term success. You're not in it to make a quick buck in my case. So I think to each their own, but certainly to answer your question directly, I think a lot of entrepreneurs can get pulled into that vortex of being totally obsessed with business, and it impacts their relationships and health. And, whenever I can help people kind of think more critically about that, I'll and they're asking for advice, I'll certainly talk about balance because I think that's important.
All right. Wonderful. Thanks very much, Robert, for joining us today.
Great to be here, Mario. And yeah, enjoyed it a lot. Looking forward to chat with you soon.
All right. Thank you. That was Robert Price, CEO of Bode. I'm Mario Toneguzzi, managing editor of Canada's Podcasts. Today, Calgary's Podcast. Thanks for joining us.